All right. Good afternoon, everybody, now that it's noon. My name is Gordon Williams. I'm the Manager of Planning and Analysis for Water Quality at East Bay Mud, and I'm also a member of the Cal Nevada AWWA/CWA Advanced Water Treatment Operator Certification Committee. I'm the Vice Chair of that committee, and I've been involved with it for many years at this point. Today, we're going to be talking with you about this new Advanced Water Treatment Operator Certification Program. We're going to give you some background in terms of what the program is, why there was this industry need for a new certification program, then get into how to sign up for the exam and try to answer any questions that you have. Just a couple of quick announcements. If you have questions, there's a question and answer box in the Zoom platform. If you, at least on my screen, if I put the mouse towards the bottom, there's a little Q&A box. I click on that, you can enter your question there, and just please do them one at a time, and we'll try to answer them at some point during this webinar. If you have any technical issues or difficulties, you can put that into the chat box, also by scrolling your mouse towards the bottom of the screen. And this webinar is also being recorded, and we'll post it to the AWT operator website so you can view it later. All right, so there we go. So speaking of that website, there's a lot of information up there. Cal Nevada and CWA built this pretty phenomenal website up there. So it's AWToperator.org. And on that website, you can download the Candidate Handbook, which has the answers to tons of questions, and there's quite a lot of information in there as well. So I'm going to start with what is an advanced water technology. It's a pretty broad category. Alec, you go to the next slide. Here's a list of what's being considered an advanced water treatment technology for the purposes of this certification program, including absorption and ion exchange, advanced oxidation, biological filtration, advanced disinfection, product finished water, chemical stabilization, iron and manganese removal, membrane bioreactors, membrane desalination, and membrane filtration. Oh, you can go to the next slide, Alec. Those are all technologies that aren't covered with existing wastewater and water treatment operator certification programs. And so this program is developed, and we'll get into the reasons why a bit more in just a minute, but this program was developed to address those. The way, just to get this kind of into your minds and understanding where we ended up with this program, there's two entryways into the Advanced Water Treatment Operator Certification Program, and that's either having at least a T3 or a Grade 3 certification, either drinking water or wastewater, and that's the baseline then in which to enter the Advanced Water Treatment Program. Within that program, there are 3 levels defined, and we'll get into what those entail in a little bit. But the baseline, if you just go back 1 second, the baseline to get in is level 3, but whether or not you're level 3, 4, or 5 in water or wastewater, they all feed into 3. And then once you have a 3, regardless of what other certifications you have, you can move up to AWT4 and AWT5. You don't need a T5 to get an AWT5. You just need a T3, and then an AWT3, AWT4, AWT5. Okay. Next slide. So reasons to get certified. There are several. First off, that we see this as a potential path to advance your water career. There are a lot of opportunities nowadays in advanced water treatment facilities, and so getting this now and getting this out of the way and getting it done will give you a leg forward. 2, we anticipate that many agencies may require the certification, will likely require the certification to work at advanced water treatment facilities in the future. Thanks, Alec. So in terms of working in these facilities in the future, we'll talk about it in a minute, but we did do a survey, and there were a fair amount of utility participants in the survey process that said that they would require such certification for their program. The third reason here is to correct this issue of fairness for operators. There's something this committee has worked on for a while, has been this issue of being an operator at like a T3 operator at a potable reuse facility where you're producing water for groundwater injection, not able to count that certification as drinking water treatment certification. And so this program is another path forward for those that kind of get stuck in that situation. And the fourth reason here is that increased AWT training and networking. There's a lot of networking opportunities through education and exam taking as well. Let's go to the next slide. So a lot of people ask, well, why do we need a new certification program? And the short answer is this program is in response to the need that's been called out by the industry. This is a picture of the expert panel that was formed by the Division of Drinking Water as one of the Senate bills back, I think it started in 2013. But one of their findings, their task was to look into the feasibility of regulating direct potable reuse, or nowadays what we call treated raw or treated water augmentation. And one of their key findings was a new certification program would be needed to allow the state to move forward with doing that raw or treated water augmentation. So that was one of many voices at the time that called out for this. You can go to the next slide. So there are a lot of other industry needs that were kind of pushing this forward, but folks are looking at developing new water sources such as desalination or treating fairly impaired water sources that require advanced water technologies. Advanced water technologies are becoming more prevalent as time goes on, and the standard treatment technologies that were included in existing operator certifications aren't covered, don't cover these new technologies. Also, there's an increasing number of advanced water treatment facilities, specifically in the realm of potable reuse. There's a lot of new potable reuse projects that are in various stages of design and construction, and there's going to be greater need for operators for those facilities. Further, what I mentioned with the state expert panel, that's for direct potable reuse, but even for indirect potable reuse. So the groundwater augmentation or surface water augmentation, the state has also indicated that they have an interest in using such a certification program in their permitting approach for writing the requirements for new facilities. And finally, public confidence. Having such a certification program is a boost for public confidence. We know that the operators we have running the facilities are great, and having something like this program allows us to use more titles to characterize their greatness. So if we go to the next slide, Alec. This just talks a little bit more about the history of this program coming together. So this was, I mentioned the state's expert panel, Cal Nevada Recycle Water Committee, and Cal Nevada Certification Committee. We're talking about doing this at the same time. The CUA, the California Urban Water Agencies, they were doing a white paper on the same topic. The Water Research Foundation, at the time, Water Reuse Research Foundation, was developing a couple projects related to this, and we were getting a lot of input from utilities that this was needed. And so all these things were kind of coming together all at the same time, and Cal Nevada and CWA put together this joint committee to develop this program. So there was quite a bit of talk and noise about 4 years ago, like this is something we need to do. And so this was what you're seeing today, and what exists today is Cal Nevada and CWA's response to that industry need. So Alec, we can go to the next slide. So this is a picture of the committee a while back, just to give you some background in terms of what that committee, who made up that committee. In terms of industry representation, about half of the committee were folks who worked for utilities. The other half was split between regulatory representatives, so people from the DDW and the regional boards and state water resource control boards. Industry groups were like CWA and Cal Nevada, and we also had a few consultants that had a lot of experience with advanced technologies. So those were the industry representations. In terms of the utilities and their job classifications, about half of them were management and half of them were operators. So we did have a fair amount of operators, both like T4, T5 operators and grade 5 wastewater operators that were part of this process. We can go to the next slide. This committee met for years and did quite a bit, and I'm just summarizing a couple of things on the slide with it. But I mentioned this survey. This question comes up a lot of like along with the driver for doing this. But there was a survey that went out around 2015 that I think we had something like 400 responses from industry individuals talking about what should be involved with this program, what it should look like, how much of a need is there for this. And overall, there's a 88% favorable finding for creating such a program. This committee worked to develop the structure of the certification program, so figuring out like what we showed at the beginning about experience requirements and coming in at like a T3 level or a grade 3 level. Alec will talk about that a little more in a minute, but there's probably 20 kind of critical questions that this committee worked to answer and define. This committee also assembled the subject matter experts. So some of the folks on the committee served as subject matter experts, and then other subject matter experts were pulled in throughout the industry on representing different technologies and operators in different fields, and pulling that together to further define the program, to conduct a job analysis of defining what tasks really should be covered by the certification program, and then ultimately leading to another group that developed the exam. And so Alec, you can go to the next slide. These are there are many sponsoring agencies and organizations for this program, and these are folks that contributed money to the effort. The committee was an all-volunteer committee. The money that was raised through all these organizations were to help hire various consultants who do certification development and administered the subject matter expert panels to